The wind carved through the Hindu Kush like a serrated blade, pulling heat from bone. Snow fell in sheets so thick it erased the line between earth and sky. Staff Sergeant Aurora Hale lay motionless in her hide, 300 meters above the valley floor, watching her breath crystallize in the sub-zero air. Christmas Eve, 2300 hours. The kind of night when smart soldiers stayed close to heat sources and whiskey. But Aurora wasn't smart. She was excellent. There was a difference. Through her spotting scope, she tracked the SEAL extraction team as they moved through the canyon below. 6 operators, 1 wounded, all ghosts in winter camouflage against the mountain face. They'd hit a Taliban weapons cache 12 clicks north, grabbed the intel, and triggered every alarm from Kabul to Islamabad doing it. The op had been clean until it wasn't. Someone had talked. Someone always talked. Her radio crackled. Overwatch, this is Ghost 1. We've got movement on thermal, multiple contacts, northeast ridge. Aurora shifted her scope. 42 heat signatures, spreading like infection across the mountainside. Professional, coordinated, not the usual Taliban foot soldiers. Ghost 1, Overwatch confirms. Count 42 hostiles in pursuit pattern. They knew your route. Lieutenant Marcus Chen's voice came back tight. Copy that. Wind's picking up. Can you still? Negative on air support, Aurora interrupted. She'd already checked with operations. Blizzard's intensifying. Rotary and fixed wing grounded until 0600 minimum. A pause. Then, fantastic. Merry Christmas to us. Aurora watched the SEALs pick up pace, half carrying their wounded. Petty Officer Davis, gut shot, leaving a pink trail in the snow that even the storm couldn't hide fast enough. The pursuit team would follow that trail straight to them. She ran numbers in her head. Distance to SEAL position, 3,801 meters. Wind, gusting 30 to 45 knots, shifting northeast. Temperature, minus 23 Celsius. Barometric pressure dropping. Snowfall rate, approximately 3 centimeters per hour. Mathematically impossible. Ballistically absurd. She'd done harder shots before breakfast. Alone. In worse weather. But the SEALs didn't know that. To them, she was the diversity hire. The pretty face that made the recruitment posters look progressive. The female sniper who'd never proven herself in real combat because command kept her wrapped in bubble wrap and good intentions. Let them think it. Underestimation was her favorite weapon. Her secondary radio buzzed. Different frequency. Aurora, this is McKinley at base. We're tracking your position. Status? Captain James McKinley. Logistics officer. The kind of man who filed reports in triplicate and believed women belonged in support roles, not trigger positions. Maintaining Overwatch, sir. Weather's deteriorating. Recommend you abort and return to forward operating base. Aurora watched a Taliban spotter through her scope, scanning the ridgeline with night vision, 200 meters from the SEALs. Closing. Negative, sir. I have eyes on friendlies in contact. You're over 3 clicks out. You can't help them from there. She didn't answer. McKinley's voice turned sharp. That's an order, Staff Sergeant. Aurora clicked off the radio. Orders were negotiable when lives weren't. Through the scope, she saw Chen's team reach a choke point, a narrow defile where the mountain fell away on both sides. Perfect kill box. The pursuit team would have them pinned in 90 seconds. Her spotter radio crackled again. This time, Chen's voice carried something she'd never heard from him before. Uncertainty. Overwatch. What's your effective range in these conditions? Aurora swept her scope across the enemy formation. 14 high-value targets. Leaders, officers, the men with radios and authority. Take them out. The rest would scatter like roaches. Depends on what you mean by effective. Can you reach us? Yes or no? She zoomed in on the Taliban commander, a tall man with an expensive rifle and the confidence of someone who'd never been touched at long range. He stood on an outcropping, directing his men like orchestra conductor. 3,801 meters. The world record for a confirmed kill was 3,540 meters, set by a Canadian sniper in Iraq. That shot had taken perfect conditions, multiple spotters, and 3 practice rounds. Aurora had none of those things. What she had was a Macmillan TAC-50, match-grade ammunition she'd loaded herself, and a promise she'd made to a dead man 5 Christmases ago. I can reach you, she said. Chen's laugh was bitter. No one hits at 3.8 clicks, not even legends. Then I guess we'll make new legends tonight. She heard him relay that to his team, heard the skeptical silence that followed. Good. Skepticism kept soldiers alive. Faith got them killed. Aurora began her calculations. Wind speed, check. Air density, check. Coriolis effect at this latitude, check. The rotation of the Earth itself would pull her bullet right. She had to aim left, high, and trust physics more than faith. Her fingers found the custom ballistic card taped to her rifle stock. Numbers she'd run 1,000 times, for distances no sane person would attempt. Her late husband used to call it widowmaker math. He'd been right about the widow part. The storm shifted. For exactly 14 seconds, the snow thinned enough to see clear through the valley. A golden window in white chaos. Aurora settled into her rifle, feeling it become part of her skeleton. The trigger was an extension of her will. The scope, her eye, the bullet, her word, made metal. Ghost One, I need you to mark your target. Say again? The commander on the northeast outcropping. Put your laser on him. 3 seconds, no more. A pause. You're serious. Deadly. The laser flickered, invisible to the naked eye, but Aurora's scope caught it, a pinprick of infrared light dancing on the Taliban commander's chest. She adjusted her aim 6 degrees left, 2 degrees up, breathed out half a breath and held it. The world narrowed to the reticle, the target, and the wind singing equations through the night. On scope, she whispered. Clear to engage, Chen said. God help us all. Aurora didn't believe in God anymore. But she believed in trigonometry, in the consistency of metallurgy, in the way a bullet traced its arc through freezing air with mathematical certainty. She pressed the trigger. The rifle spoke with a sound like the sky cracking. Recoil drove into Aurora's shoulder, familiar as a heartbeat. She worked the bolt smoothly, chambering another round before the first had traveled half its distance. 10 seconds. That's how long the bullet needed to reach target at this range. 10 seconds of faith in numbers and nerve. She watched through the scope, compensating for the wind drift in her mind. The Taliban commander gestured to his men, completely unaware that death was already in the air, falling toward him at 900 meters per second. 8 seconds. Chen's voice came tight over the radio. Overwatch, they're moving on our position. We need... The commander's head snapped back. A pink mist materialized in the freezing air, crystallizing instantly. He crumpled like a puppet with cut strings. Contact, Chen finished weakly. The radio filled with stunned silence. Aurora was already tracking her second target. A man with a radio, 40 meters from the first. She adjusted for the slight wind change, breathed, pressed. The rifle cracked again. Jesus Christ, someone said over the net. Did she just... She did, Chen confirmed. His voice carried a new edge. Respect. Overwatch. Confirmed 2 kills at 3.8 clicks? Confirmed, Aurora said calmly, already lining up shot 3. Stand by for more. The enemy formation was dissolving into chaos. Men dove for cover, scanning the ridgelines with growing panic. They'd expected a firefight, not surgical execution from a distance that shouldn't be possible. Aurora dropped a third man, fourth, fifth. Each shot required immediate recalculation as wind and snow conditions shifted. Each pull of the trigger was a new equation solved in real time, her brain processing variables faster than conscious thought. This was what McKinley and his kind could never understand. Shooting wasn't about strength or aggression, it was mathematics made lethal, patience given teeth, and Aurora had a PhD in both. 6 down. The enemy was scattering now, abandoning their pursuit. The SEALs were moving again. Davis slung between 2 operators, all of them glancing up at the ridgeline where Aurora worked her dark miracle. She was lining up a 7th shot when her secondary radio came alive again. All units, this is base actual. Be advised, we have reports of compromise on Ghost One's route. Repeat, enemy had advance intelligence on extraction path. Aurora's finger froze on the trigger. She'd suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed made her stomach ice over. Chen came back immediately. Base, Ghost, 1. How did they know our route? That was classified at the highest level. Under investigation. Maintain radio discipline and proceed to alternate extraction point Lima. But Aurora was already thinking 3 moves ahead. There were only 2 people at forward operating base with access to the route data. McKinley and Colonel Sarah Brennan, the base commander. Brennan was career Army, decorated, solid. McKinley was career logistics, recently transferred, with a file that was surprisingly thin for a captain his age. She keyed her private channel to Chen. Ghost 1, Overwatch on secure, don't acknowledge. Smart operator that he was, Chen said nothing. But she knew he was listening. Someone at base leaked your route, Aurora continued. McKinley's the only one who knew I was on Overwatch, and he just tried to call me off the mountain before I could help you. Think about that. She could almost hear Chen's jaw tighten. Through her scope, Aurora swept the valley. The enemy was reforming, 200 meters east. Not retreating, regrouping. They were expecting something, waiting for something. A second wave. Ghost 1, you've got reinforcements incoming from the east. Approximately 60 additional hostiles. They were pre-positioned. Copy. Chen's voice was flat, professional, but Aurora heard the calculation underneath. His team had maybe 20 magazines between them. 1 wounded, no air support, and a mountain pass to cross before extraction. The math didn't work. Not without her. Aurora checked her ammunition. 23 rounds left. 23 chances to keep 6 men breathing. Overwatch, Chen said quietly. I need you to know. We doubted you. Back at base, some of the guys, we thought you were just... Diversity quota, Aurora finished. Token female, PR stunt. Yeah, I know. It's fine. It's not fine. And if we make it off this mountain, I'm buying you the most expensive bourbon Tennessee makes. Aurora allowed herself the ghost of a smile. I don't drink. Then I'll buy it and drink it in your honor. She lined up another shot. A man with an RPG, setting up on a ridge that would give him a clear shot at the SEAL's path. The wind had shifted again. She compensated, fired. The man went down, his rocket tumbling harmlessly into the snow. Save the bourbon money, Aurora said. You're going to need it for Davis's medical bills. A weak laugh from one of the other SEALs. She's got jokes, boys. We're definitely going to die. But they weren't. Aurora wouldn't allow it. She'd made a promise 5 years ago on another Christmas Eve, standing in Arlington National Cemetery while they played taps for a man who'd promised her he'd come home. Her husband had been a SEAL, too. Had died in an ambush that intelligence said was impossible, on a route that intelligence said was secure. Someone had talked then, too. Someone always talked. Aurora had joined the Army 3 months later, scored expert on every weapons qualification, broke records, pushed until they had to acknowledge her, until they couldn't ignore the fact that she could outshoot men twice her size with half her conscience. And now here she was, on a mountain in Afghanistan, keeping the promise she'd made at her husband's grave. You wanted to know if I can reach you? Aurora said into the radio. Marcus, I can reach anyone, anywhere, and I won't let you die on Christmas. Not on my watch. Through the scope, she saw the second wave of fighters moving into position. 58 hostiles, well-armed, professional. Aurora settled deeper into her hide, feeling the cold seep through her bones, welcoming it. Cold slowed the heartbeat, steadied the hand. Then, I guess we'd better give you something to shoot at, Chen replied. And the mountain erupted into war. The enemy came in formation, which told Aurora everything she needed to know. These weren't Taliban irregulars or local militia. This was Red Crescent, the mercenary group that had been ghosting through Afghanistan for the past 8 months, hitting coalition forces with precision that suggested advanced training. Russian operators, most likely, maybe some former Spetsnaz, definitely professionals who got paid in euros and left no prisoners. Through her thermal scope, Aurora counted the heat signatures again. 58 confirmed. They were moving in a double envelopment pattern, trying to pinch the SEALs between 2 fires. Classic canny tactics, old as warfare itself. Chen saw it too. Overwatch, we're about to get boxed in. I see it. Aurora was already tracking the Southern Element leader. Give me 30 seconds. She didn't have 30 seconds. She had maybe 20 before the trap closed. The wind howled, driving snow into her scope. She blinked away ice crystals, recalculated for the new gusts. 47 knots now, swirling in the valley like a living thing. The bullet would drift right, then left, then right again, depending on which layer of air it passed through. Impossible math. But Aurora had never believed in impossible. She fired. The Southern Element leader dropped. His men halted, confused. Fired again. The second in command went down. Now they were leaderless, milling. But the Northern Element was still moving, and they'd seen what happened to the Southern group. They were spreading out, making themselves harder targets. Smart. Aurora shifted aim, tracking a man with a distinctive gait. Former military, she guessed from the way he moved. Probably the tactical commander. Take him out, they'd lose cohesion. She squeezed the trigger. Missed. The wind had shifted again, catching her off guard. The bullet sparked off rock 3 feet left of target. Damn, she breathed. The commander dove for cover, shouting orders. The Northern Element began a fighting withdrawal, using proper bounding overwatch. These men had been trained by someone who knew what they were doing. Aurora worked the bolt, chambered another round. Found the commander again, partially hidden behind a boulder, only his shoulder and head exposed. A tiny target at this range, maybe 18 inches visible. She adjusted for wind, temperature, the slight upward angle. Her breathing slowed until she could feel individual heartbeats. The world narrowed to the reticle and the target. Press. The commander's head snapped back. He slumped, visible now as his body fell from cover. Northern element is combat ineffective, Aurora reported, moving to support southern intercept. But the southern element had found their nerve. Someone had taken charge, was organizing them into a skirmish line. They'd figured out roughly where the shots were coming from, and they were bringing up a heavy machine gun. Aurora saw the gun crew setting up, 3 men working with practiced efficiency. Once that gun opened up, the SEALs would be pinned down, easy targets for the rocket teams she could see maneuvering into position. She had to take out that gun crew, all 3 of them, before they could get operational. Distance, 3,847 meters. Wind, variable, 40 to 52 knots. Snow, intensifying. Aurora breathed out slowly, finding the calm place her husband had taught her to access. Fear is just noise, he used to say. Numbers are truth. Trust the numbers. First gunner, adjust for wind drift. Fire. Down. Second gunner, moving to take his place. Recalculate. The wind had shifted 5 degrees. Fire. Down. Third man, smarter than the others. He dove for cover, but Aurora had anticipated it, had already adjusted her aim to where he would be. Fire. Down. The machine gun sat silent, its crew scattered in the snow like discarded toys. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, someone whispered over the net. Petty Officer Garcia, she thought. She's a goddamn artist. She's a goddamn miracle, Chen corrected. Overwatch? Confirmed 12 kills? Aurora did a quick count. 14. 2 spotters you didn't see on your thermal. Silence on the radio. Then, copy 14. We're moving to extraction point Lima, ETA 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Aurora checked her ammunition. 17 rounds left. The enemy was down to maybe 44 effectives, but they were angry now, and angry men made mistakes. Or, they got creative. She saw it before they did. A small thermal signature moving along the valley floor. Too small for a person. Too deliberate for an animal. Ghost 1, you've got a drone tracking you. Small quadcopter, probably surveillance. Can you... Aurora fired. The drone disintegrated mid-air, components scattering across the snow. Never mind. Drone down. She smiled, despite herself. 16 rounds left. 16 chances to keep her promise. The enemy was adapting now, using the terrain smarter, staying hidden. They'd figured out her approximate position and were trying to flank, sending teams up the mountain on both sides of her hide. Aurora checked her watch. 18 minutes until the SEALs reached extraction. 18 minutes to hold off an unknown number of climbers while keeping the valley floor suppressed. Her radio crackled. McKinley's voice, tight with something that might have been concern or might have been calculation. Staff Sergeant Hale, this is base actual. We're tracking increased enemy activity in your sector. Recommend immediate withdrawal to secondary position. Aurora watched through her scope as 2 teams of climbers made their way up the mountain, moving with tactical precision. They were maybe 15 minutes from her position. If she abandoned her hide, the SEALs would lose their overwatch. If she stayed, she'd have to fight at close range. Negative, base. I'm staying put. That's not a request, Staff Sergeant. That's an order. Aurora thought about that. Thought about McKinley's convenient timing, his insistence that she abandon her position just when the SEALs needed her most. Thought about the leaked intelligence, the pre-positioned enemy forces, the too perfect ambush. Captain McKinley, she said carefully, with all due respect, sir, my primary duty is to my team in the field. I'm maintaining position until they're secure. I will have you court-martialed for this. You can try, sir, if I survive. She clicked off before he could respond, switched to Chen's frequency. Ghost 1, be advised, I've got climbers incoming on my position. We'll maintain overwatch as long as possible, but if things get sporty up here, you'll lose sniper support. How long do you have? Aurora glassed the climbers again. They were good, using cover effectively, moving in coordinated bounds. 10 minutes, maybe 12. We can be at extraction in 15. The math was ugly. Aurora would have to hold off 2 assault teams for at least 3 minutes after her overwatch capability ended. Close quarters combat against professional soldiers, probably 8 to 1 odds. She'd faced worse. Not often, but she'd faced worse. Copy that. I'll keep the valley clear. You just run. Chen's voice dropped. Aurora. We don't leave anyone behind. You're not leaving me behind. I'm staying behind. There's a difference. She could hear him calculating, running through scenarios. They both knew the truth. If he diverted to help her, they'd all die. If he kept moving, she might die alone. That's an order, Marcus, Aurora added. Get your team out. That's the mission. A long pause. Then, Godspeed, Staff Sergeant. Math speed is faster, Aurora replied. Now move. She returned to her scope, tracking movement in the valley. The enemy was getting smarter, using the terrain and weather to mask their approach. She could only see maybe half of them now, which meant the other half were maneuvering into positions she couldn't cover. 15 rounds left, 2 assault teams closing on her position, 40+ hostiles in the valley, and a traitor back at base who wanted her dead almost as much as he wanted the SEALs dead. Aurora checked her sidearm, her knife, the 2 fragmentation grenades clipped to her vest. Inventory for the end of the world. Then she settled back into her rifle and got to work. Because the math might be ugly, but it wasn't impossible. And Aurora Hale had built her entire life on proving that impossible was just another word for hasn't been done yet. The wind carried memories along with the snow. Aurora tried to ignore them, but the cold always brought her back to that other Christmas, 5 years gone but fresh as yesterday's wound. Lieutenant Commander Jacob Hale had proposed to her on Christmas Eve, during a snowstorm not unlike this one. They'd been at her parents' cabin in Montana, and he'd gotten down on one knee in 3 feet of powder, holding a ring box he'd kept warm inside his jacket. Marry me, he'd said. I want to spend every Christmas for the rest of my life with you. They'd had 4 Christmases together. 4 years of him deploying and her waiting, of her shooting Olympic qualifiers while he ran missions in places she couldn't know about, of video calls and letters and the constant, gnawing fear that one day the chaplain would knock on her door. The chaplain had come on Christmas Eve of the 5th year. Jacob's SEAL team had been hit during an extraction in Yemen. Intelligence failure, they said. Someone had leaked the route. Someone always leaked the route. Aurora had buried her husband 2 days after Christmas, had stood in Arlington with snow falling on her black dress, watching them fold the flag with mechanical precision, had listened to taps played by a bugler who did this 3 times a day, every day, making grief into routine. The army colonel who'd handed her the flag had leaned close, lowered his voice. Your husband spoke about you constantly, said you were the best shot he'd ever seen, said you could hit anything at any range. He exaggerated, Aurora had whispered. He said you made promises you kept. That's rarer than marksmanship. And Aurora had made a promise then, standing in the snow with her dead husband's flag in her hands. She'd promised that no one else would die on Christmas because someone talked, that she would learn to shoot farther, shoot better, shoot with such precision that intelligence leaks and traitor mathematics wouldn't matter. That had been 5 years ago. 5 years of training, of pushing her body and mind past every reasonable limit, of calculating bullet trajectories while other women her age planned weddings and careers. 5 years of turning grief into accuracy. Now she was here, on another mountain, on another Christmas Eve, keeping that promise with every trigger pull. Through her scope, she saw the climbers getting closer. 8 minutes out, maybe 7. Below, in the valley, the SEALs were making good time. 13 minutes to extraction. The math was getting tighter. Aurora shifted her aim to the valley floor, found a team trying to flank the SEALs' route. She dropped 2 of them in quick succession, watched the others scatter. 13 rounds left. Her radio crackled. Chen's voice, slightly breathless from exertion. Overwatch, we've got visual on extraction point. Landing zone is cold. Repeat, cold. That was good news. No enemy at the pickup site. But they still had to cross 400 meters of open ground to reach it, and Aurora could see enemy forces moving to intercept. She began engaging targets systematically. A spotter at 3,672 meters, down. A machine gunner setting up at 3,901 meters, down. A rocket team at 3,756 meters. Both shooters down before they could acquire the SEALs. 10 rounds left. The climbers were 6 minutes out now. She could hear them occasionally, rocks dislodging, equipment scraping. They were being careful, professional. They knew they were hunting a sniper. Aurora made a decision. She shifted her position slightly, moving to a secondary hide she'd prepared earlier. Left her pack in the original position, stuffed with spare gear to maintain a thermal signature. Not perfect, but it might buy her 90 seconds. 5 minutes until the climbers reached her old position. 10 minutes until the SEALs reached extraction. She settled into the new hide, got back on scope. The SEALs were in the open now, moving fast across the plateau toward the landing zone, completely exposed. This was the moment the enemy had been waiting for. Aurora saw them rise from concealment like a wave. 12 hostiles, well-positioned, with clear fields of fire. The SEALs would be cut down before they made it halfway across. She didn't have time to think, didn't have time for perfect calculations. She went on instinct and muscle memory, letting 5 years of grief-fueled training take over. First target, fire, down. Second target, fire, down. Third, fourth, fifth. The rifle became an extension of her will, each shot flowing into the next with mechanical precision. She wasn't thinking anymore, wasn't calculating. She was just shooting, trusting the numbers she'd internalized, the wind patterns she'd memorized, the tiny adjustments her hands made automatically. 6, 7, 8. 4 rounds left. 4 hostiles still shooting at her team. 9, 10, 11. 1 round left. 1 enemy, diving for cover, almost safe. Aurora breathed out, found the calm place that existed beyond fear and cold. Saw where he would be, not where he was. Adjusted for his momentum, the snow's resistance, the fraction of a second it would take her bullet to arrive. Pressed the trigger. The rifle clicked empty. The man fell. "Clear," Aurora said into the radio. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "Valley is clear. Execute extraction." She heard the helicopter before she saw it, rotors beating against the storm, a blessed sound. Then she heard something closer. Boots on rock, maybe 50 meters below. The climbers had reached her old position, would realize in seconds that they'd been fooled. Aurora dropped her rifle, drew her sidearm. 15 rounds in the Sig Sauer, 2 magazines spare. Still terrible math, but math she could work with. The first climber appeared on the ridgeline, sweeping with a tactical light. Aurora put 2 rounds center mass before he could react. He went down, and the ridge erupted with automatic weapons fire. She rolled behind cover, feeling rounds crack past her head. 4 shooters, maybe 5, all with better positions than her. Below, the helicopter was touching down. The SEALs would be aboard in seconds, safe, mission complete. Aurora smiled. Jacob would have been proud. She returned fire, dropping another climber. Reloaded smoothly, muscle memory taking over. The enemy was advancing now, realizing she was alone, probably low on ammunition. Her radio crackled one last time, Chen's voice, shouting over the helicopter noise. "Overwatch, we're Oscar Mike. You have 30 seconds to get to secondary extraction." "Negative, Ghost 1. I'm engaged." "How many?" "Too many. Get out of here, Marcus. That's an order." "Since when do you outrank me?" "Despite everything," Aurora laughed. "Since I saved your life 14 times tonight." A pause, then, "The record was 15. You're 1 short." Before she could respond, she heard new sounds. Boots hitting snow, running fast, multiple sets. The SEALs were coming back for her. "Marcus, no." "Shut up and shoot, Staff Sergeant. We're not leaving you." Aurora felt something break open in her chest, something that had been frozen since Arlington. She blinked away tears that weren't from the cold, got back on her sidearm. "Fine," she said, "but you're still buying that bourbon." "Deal. Now give me a sit rep." 5 hostiles, northeast position, 70 meters and closing. I'm at. Gunfire cut her off. But this time, it wasn't aimed at her. The SEALs had reached the fight, were engaging from below, catching the climbers in a crossfire. Aurora popped up, added her sidearm to the mix. 2 more hostiles down. The remaining 3 tried to retreat, ran straight into Chen and Garcia. Silence fell, broken only by the wind and the distant helicopter. Chen appeared beside her hide, breathing hard, rifle ready. "You good?" Aurora checked herself. "No hits. I'm good. Then let's go home." They made the extraction point in 4 minutes, running through snow that tried to hold them like quicksand. The helicopter was a beautiful sight, its rotors a promise of warmth and safety and Christmas morning somewhere far from this frozen hell. As Aurora climbed aboard, Chen grabbed her arm. 15, he said. "What? You said the record was 14 kills. But you got 3 more during the firefight. That's 15 headshots at impossible range, plus 3 at close quarters. 15 lives saved." Aurora looked at him, at the other SEALs, at Davis, who was being tended by the crew chief and would probably live because she'd kept the enemy off them long enough to get him help. 16, she said quietly. I saved 16 lives tonight. Chen frowned. I count 15. You forgot to count mine. Understanding dawned in his eyes. He'd seen the ammunition count, knew she'd been planning to die on that ridge. Make her stand, keep them safe, not worry about getting out. Yeah, Chen said softly. 16. Thank you for that. The helicopter lifted off, leaving the mountain and its ghosts behind. Aurora pressed her face to the window, watched the snow erase her footprints, her hide, all evidence that she'd been there. But she'd been there. And for the first time since Arlington, since folding that flag and making that promise, Aurora Hale felt like she could finally breathe. The forward operating base looked like a postcard of Christmas gone military. Someone had strung lights around the operations tent. A scraggly pine tree stood in the motor pool, decorated with spent brass and 550 cord. Holiday music played from someone's phone, tinny and surreal. Aurora sat in the medical tent, letting a corpsman check her for injuries she didn't have. Across from her, Davis was being prepped for medevac to Bagram, stable but serious. He'd live, which was all that mattered. Chen stood at the tent entrance, still in his winter kit, speaking in low tones with Colonel Brennan. Aurora couldn't hear the words, but she could read the body language. Chen was angry. Brennan was angrier. The corpsman finished his examination. You're good to go, Staff Sergeant. Though I'd recommend some sleep. You look like you've been through hell. Just another Tuesday, Aurora said, though her hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. Delayed stress response. Normal. Nothing to worry about. The corpsman gave her a knowing look. I'll note that you're clear for duty. But between us, take the rest of Christmas off. That's an order from someone who doesn't actually have authority to give you orders. Aurora managed a smile. Best kind of orders. She stepped out into the pre-dawn cold. The sky was starting to lighten, turning from black to deep purple. Christmas morning, coming whether anyone wanted it or not. Chen spotted her, broke away from Brennan. Colonel wants to see you. Like, now. Am I in trouble? You disobeyed a direct order from McKinley to withdraw. So yes. But also no. It's complicated. They walked across the compound, boots crunching in fresh snow. Chen kept his voice low. I told Brennan about McKinley trying to call you off the mountain. About the timing, the leaked intelligence. She's not happy. Where is McKinley? Confined to quarters, pending investigation. We found a sat phone in his quarters. Encrypted. He's been making calls to numbers in Pakistan. Aurora stopped walking. He sold us out. Looks that way. The encrypted phone, the timing of his orders to you, the fact that he knew our exact route and had clearance to modify it. Chen's jaw tightened. He was probably setting us up to die, make it look like a tactical error. Discredit the mission, maybe cost Brennan her command. Guy's got a brother-in-law who runs a contracting company, lost a huge bid to us 6 months ago. So this was about money. It's always about money. Chen kicked at a snowdrift. Or revenge. Or politics. Always something small and stupid that gets good people killed. They reached the operations tent. Chen held the flap open. For what it's worth? What you did tonight. I've been doing this for 12 years. I've worked with the best shooters in the world. And I've never seen anything like that. Aurora didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded and went inside. Colonel Brennan looked like she'd aged 10 years since the mission brief. She was a compact woman in her 50s, with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Right now, those eyes were fixed on Aurora, with an intensity that was both unsettling and oddly reassuring. Staff Sergeant Hale, sit. Aurora sat. Brennan steepled her fingers. I've just spent the last hour on a conference call with JSOC, CENTCOM, and people whose titles I'm not cleared to know. They've all been briefed on tonight's operation. 14 confirmed kills at ranges exceeding 3,800 meters, in conditions that made visual confirmation nearly impossible. 16 kills total, ma'am. If we're counting the close quarters engagement. Right, 16. Brennan's expression didn't change. You disobeyed a direct order from a superior officer. Yes, ma'am. You remained in position despite explicit orders to withdraw. Yes, ma'am. And in doing so, you saved the lives of 6 operators and potentially prevented a significant intelligence coup for hostile forces. Aurora said nothing. There was no good answer to that. Brennan leaned back. Captain McKinley has been arrested. We found evidence that he's been passing information to a proxy group working for Red Crescent. Seems he had a grudge against the special operations community. Thought he could make some money and some trouble at the same time. He tried to get me killed, ma'am. He tried to get all of you killed. The leaked route. The pre-positioned enemy forces. Even the weather delay that grounded our air support. He'd been planning this for weeks. Brennan's voice went cold. He didn't count on you being willing to take shots that the textbooks say are impossible. With respect, ma'am, the textbooks are wrong. It's just math. Is that what you tell yourself? That it's just math? Brennan pulled out a folder, spread photos across her desk. Satellite imagery of the valley, with markers showing Aurora's shots. Each one a perfect headshot. Each one at a distance that should have made accuracy impossible. Staff Sergeant, I've been in the Army for 32 years. I've seen a lot of incredible things. But this, she tapped the photos. This is something else. This is either a statistical impossibility that happened to work out, or you're operating at a level we don't have metrics for. Aurora looked at the photos, seeing the cold mathematics laid out in satellite imagery. Wind vectors, bullet trajectories, probability curves that should have resulted in complete misses. My husband was a SEAL, ma'am. He died 5 years ago on Christmas Eve because someone leaked intelligence. I promised his memory that I'd learn to shoot so well that intelligence leaks wouldn't matter, that I could protect people even when someone talked, even when the math was bad. She met Brennan's eyes. Tonight was me keeping that promise. The colonel's expression softened slightly. Lieutenant Commander Jacob Hale, SEAL Team 6. I knew him, actually. Good man. The kind who'd run into fire to pull out a teammate. Yes, ma'am. He'd be proud of you. Aurora felt her throat tighten. Thank you, ma'am. Brennan closed the folder. Officially, you're being reprimanded for disobeying orders. It'll go in your file. Unofficially, I'm recommending you for a Silver Star and immediate promotion to Sergeant First Class. Your actions tonight saved lives and preserved operational integrity in the face of betrayal. I just did my job, ma'am. Your job description says provide long-range reconnaissance and target elimination. It doesn't say anything about performing miracles in blizzard conditions against impossible odds. Brennan stood, extended her hand. Merry Christmas, Staff Sergeant. You earned it. Aurora shook her hand, surprised to find it warm and strong. As she turned to leave, Brennan added, one more thing. McKinley's sat phone had recent calls to a number in Virginia. We're still tracing it, but it looks like he wasn't working alone. Someone stateside was coordinating the intelligence leaks. Aurora turned back. You'll find them? We'll find them. And when we do, they'll spend Christmas for the rest of their lives in Leavenworth. Brennan's smile was thin and sharp. Merry Christmas, Sergeant. Get some rest. That's an order you're allowed to follow. The SEALs had taken over one of the mess tents, turned it into an impromptu Christmas celebration. Someone had scavenged real coffee, not the motor oil they usually served. Someone else had produced a bottle of Tennessee bourbon that Chen was saving for a special occasion. This qualified. Aurora stood at the entrance, suddenly unsure. She'd spent most of her military career being professionally distant. The woman who showed up did the impossible and left before anyone could get too close. Grief had made her good at walls. But Chen saw her, waved her over with a grin that was probably 70% exhaustion and 30% bourbon. There she is, the ghost of Christmas present. The other SEALs cheered. Garcia pulled out a chair for her. Davis, who should have been on a medevac but had somehow convinced the doctors to let him stay until morning, raised his coffee cup in salute. Speech, someone called. No, Aurora said immediately. Come on, Staff Sergeant, Chen said. You just did the impossible. Least you can do is tell us how. Aurora sat, accepted a cup of coffee that smelled like heaven. It's just math. Wind speed, barometric pressure, Coriolis effect, temperature gradients. Nerd stuff, Garcia interrupted. We get it. But seriously, how do you learn to shoot like that? Aurora wrapped her hands around the coffee cup, feeling the warmth seep into her fingers. How did you explain 5 years of turning grief into accuracy? 5 years of waking up at 0400 to practice in conditions that normal people avoided? 5 years of making every shot count because that's what you'd promised a dead man? My husband taught me the basics, she said finally. He used to say that fear is just noise. Numbers are truth. Everything else is just interference. The tent went quiet. They knew about Jacob. Everyone knew about Jacob. It was in her file, the thing that made senior officers uncomfortable and junior officers awkward. Chen raised his bourbon. To Jacob Hale, and to his wife, who just proved that some promises are worth keeping. They drank to that. Aurora felt tears threaten and blinked them back. Not here, not now. So, Garcia said, breaking the moment with practiced ease. Those last 3 shots, when you were basically out of ammo and we were being stupid by coming back for you. You weren't worried? I was terrified, Aurora admitted. But I was also doing math. 3 hostiles, 15 rounds in my sidearm. The numbers worked. The numbers worked, Davis repeated, shaking his head. She says it like it's simple. It is simple. It's the execution that's hard. Chen laughed. You know what? I believe you. Here's my thing, though. How did you know McKinley was dirty? When did you figure it out? Aurora thought back. When he tried to call me off the mountain. The timing was too perfect, and his voice, he wasn't worried about me. He was worried I'd help you. There's a difference in tone. You got all that from a radio call? I've spent 5 years learning to read the small signs. Wind shift, temperature drop, the way someone breathes before they lie. You learn to pay attention to everything. Garcia whistled. Remind me never to play poker with you. I don't play poker. Smart woman. The conversation drifted, became easier. Stories from other missions, other Christmases. The bottle of bourbon made the rounds. Aurora nursed her coffee and listened, feeling something strange and unfamiliar. She felt like she belonged. Around 0600, as real dawn was breaking, Chen pulled her aside. Question for you, he said quietly. And you don't have to answer if you don't want. But when you were on that ridge, before we came back for you, were you planning to make it out? Aurora considered lying, decided he'd earned the truth. No, I was planning to hold as long as I could, keep you safe. What happened after didn't seem important. Chen nodded slowly. That's what I thought. Here's the thing, Aurora. Your husband? He'd want you to live. Not just exist, not just survive. Actually live. You didn't know him. I knew guys like him. Hell, I am guys like him. And I know that no SEAL wants his wife to die on a mountain because she's still trying to save him 5 years after he's gone. The words hit harder than they should have. Aurora looked away, blinking against the sunrise and the sudden sting in her eyes. We came back for you, Chen continued. Not because we felt obligated, not because we owed you, but because you're part of the team now. And we don't leave our people behind. Ever. Aurora's voice came out rough. I'm not a SEAL. No, you're better. You're the woman who made 15 impossible shots to save our lives, then had the guts to keep fighting when the math said you should die. He gripped her shoulder. You're family now, whether you like it or not. She did like it. That was the terrifying part. Merry Christmas, Marcus, she said. Merry Christmas, Aurora. Now come on. Garcia claims he can make French toast out of MREs, and I need you to settle a bet on whether he's insane or just stupid. Both, Aurora said. Definitely both. They went back to the tent, to the warmth and the laughter and the family she'd accidentally built by keeping a promise to a dead man. Outside, snow fell on the Hindu Kush, covering the battleground, erasing the evidence of the night's impossible mathematics. But Aurora would remember every shot, every